Hold on to your hats, folks, because things just got interesting in Washington. A federal judge, in a move that surprised absolutely no one paying attention, slammed the brakes on the Trump administration's attempt to shutter USAID. You remember USAID, right? That little agency that does a ton of good around the world? Yeah, that one. Seems a group of USAID employees, no doubt fueled by a potent cocktail of Red Bull and righteous anger, decided to sue the administration. Their claim? That shutting down the agency was about as legal as a catnip farm at a dog show. And guess what? The judge agreed. Now, this doesn't mean USAID is out of the woods just yet, but it does buy them some time. And in the bureaucratic world, time is money, or at least less time being yelled at by angry politicians. So what happens next? Well, that's a question that would make even a fortune cookie writer sweat. But one thing's for sure, this is far from over. Let's be honest, most of us haven't really looked at the Constitution since that time we accidentally used it to line a beer cooler. It's one of those documents we all know is important, but rarely take the time to actually read or understand. We might remember a few key phrases from high school civics class, but the details, they often get lost in the shuffle of daily life. But it turns out this whole separation of powers thing, kind of a big deal. It's not just some fancy phrase thrown around by politicians and lawyers, it's the backbone of how our government is supposed to function. Each branch, executive, legislative, and judicial, has its own distinct powers and responsibilities, designed to keep any one branch from becoming too powerful. See, Judge Theodore Chuang, the man who just became public enemy #1 in the Oval Office, basically said that the Trump administration tried to pull a fast one. In a recent ruling, he pointed out that the administration's attempt to defund and dismantle USAID without congressional approval was a clear overreach of executive power. They wanted to defund and dismantle USAID without getting the okay from Congress. USAID, for those who might not know, is the United States Agency for International Development. It's responsible for administering civilian foreign aid and development assistance. Cutting its funding and operations isn't just a budgetary decision, it's a move that has far-reaching implications for U.S. foreign policy and international relations. The problem? That's about as constitutional as a presidential tweet at 3 a.m. In other words, not at all. The Constitution clearly outlines that Congress holds the power of the purse, meaning they control federal spending. Any attempt to sidestep this process is not only unconstitutional, but also undermines the very principles of checks and balances that our government is built upon. Congress, you see, has this little thing called the power of the purse. This isn't just a minor detail, it's a fundamental aspect of how our government operates. By controlling the budget, Congress ensures that taxpayer money is spent in a way that reflects the will of the people, as represented by their elected officials. Basically, they're the ones who get to decide where the money goes. This power is a critical check on the executive branch, preventing the president from unilaterally making financial decisions that could have significant impacts on the country and the world. The Trump administration trying to bypass them? Well, let's just say the judge wasn't impressed. Judge Chuang's ruling serves as a stark reminder that no one, not even the president, is above the law. The judiciary's role is to interpret the Constitution and ensure that all branches of government adhere to its principles. This whole thing is a big, fat reminder that our government is supposed to work like a well-oiled machine, with each part doing its job. When one branch tries to overstep its bounds, it throws the entire system out of balance. The separation of powers is designed to prevent this, ensuring that each branch can operate effectively without infringing on the others. Of course, right now it's looking more like a rusty tricycle with a flat tire, but hey, a little optimism never hurt anyone, right? Despite the current challenges, it's important to remember that the system is designed to withstand these kinds of tests. With vigilance and a commitment to constitutional principles, we can navigate these turbulent times and steer our government back on course. Now, what would a story about government dysfunction be without a cameo from everyone's favorite Twitter enthusiast, Elon Musk, the man who has his hands in everything from electric cars to space travel and even underground tunnels? Yes, the same Elon Musk who tweets about Dogecoin and memes. That's right, the man who's trying to build rockets to Mars apparently also had time to stick his nose into the USAID saga. You'd think running multiple companies would keep him busy, but no, Musk found a way to get involved in government affairs too. See, Musk's Department for Government Efficiency, Doge because of course that's the name, was brought in to, and I'm quoting here, streamline things. Yes, you heard that right. The man who named his child XAEA-12 and launched a car into space is now tasked with making the government more efficient. Now, I'm no expert, but I'm pretty sure putting a guy who once named a flamethrower after a movie prop in charge of a government agency is a recipe for, shall we say, unpredictability? Remember, this is the same person who sold flamethrowers to the public as a fun product. Judge Chuang seemed to think so too. He wasn't exactly thrilled about Musk's involvement. In fact, he had some strong words about it. He basically said that Musk's involvement was about as welcome as a skunk at a picnic. Imagine planning a nice day out, only to have it ruined by an unexpected smelly guest. That's how Judge Chuang viewed Musk's role in this situation. The whole thing just screams conflict of interest, and not the kind you can solve with a strongly worded email. This is a deep-rooted issue that requires more than just surface-level solutions. This is what happens when you let billionaires play government. They bring their own set of rules and often their own set of problems. It's like mixing oil and water, it just doesn't work. It's like letting a toddler loose in a china shop, except instead of broken plates you get a dismantled foreign aid agency. Fun times. The repercussions are far-reaching and can affect real lives, especially those who rely on foreign aid for survival. It's not just a game, it's a serious matter with real-world consequences. So, while Musk's involvement might make for an interesting headline, it's a stark reminder that not all innovations are welcome in every sphere. Sometimes, the best intentions can lead to the worst outcomes. And in this case, it seems like the recipe for disaster was cooked up with a generous helping of unpredictability and a dash of chaos. As we watch this saga unfold, one can't help but wonder, is this the future of government efficiency, or just another chapter in the long book of bureaucratic blunders? Only time will tell, but one thing's for sure, it's going to be an interesting ride. So, buckle up and stay tuned, because when Elon Musk is involved, you never know what's going to happen next. Whether it's rockets to Mars or shaking up government agencies, he's always full of surprises. And who knows, maybe this time, he'll actually streamline something. Or maybe, just maybe, we'll all be left picking up the pieces. So, you might be thinking, John, this is all very well and good, but what about the little guy? The people who actually work at USAID? Well, fret not, my concerned citizen, because they didn't take this lying down. Remember that lawsuit I mentioned earlier? It was filed by 26 brave souls who work at USAID. They were worried about their jobs, sure, but they were also worried about the people they help around the world, and they were willing to risk it all to fight for what they believed in. Now, these weren't CEOs raking in millions. These were regular folks, probably with mortgages and student loans and maybe even a goldfish or two. But they stood up to the big guys, and they won. At least for now. This is what democracy looks like, folks. Ordinary people standing up for what they believe in. It's messy, it's complicated, and it involves a lot of paperwork. But sometimes, just sometimes, it works. So, the judge put a stop to the shutdown. Hooray! USAID is saved, right? Well, not so fast. This whole thing is far from over. It's like we're watching a really slow-motion game of ping pong, except instead of a ball, it's the fate of an entire agency. The judge's ruling just buys USAID some time. It's like a temporary restraining order against bureaucratic chaos. The Trump administration can still appeal, and you better believe they're going to try. This thing could drag on for months, even years. In the meantime, USAID is stuck in this weird limbo. They're back open for business, but they're still staring down the barrel of a potential shutdown. It's enough to make you want to reach for the antacids or maybe something a little stronger. You didn't think the Trump administration was just going to take this lying down, did you? Oh no, they're not the kind to back down from a fight, especially when it comes to their self-proclaimed mandate to drain the swamp. This administration has always been about pushing boundaries and challenging norms, and this situation is no different. They're gearing up for a battle, and it's going to be a fierce one. The Trump administration officials are rallying their supporters, and the protests are growing louder. The signs, the chants, the sheer energy of it all, it's a spectacle to say the least. But behind the scenes there's a lot more going on. Of course, to them, draining the swamp seems to involve getting rid of anything that doesn't fit their worldview, like, facts and evidence. It's a strategy we've seen before, and it's one that can be incredibly effective. By casting doubt on the very foundations of our institutions, they create a sense of uncertainty and chaos. They're already gearing up to appeal the judge's ruling, claiming it's a travesty of justice and a gross overreach of judicial power. The legal teams are working around the clock, preparing their arguments and gathering their evidence. It's a high-stakes game and the outcome is far from certain. They're basically throwing everything they've got at the wall and hoping something sticks. It's a tactic we've seen before, and unfortunately, it sometimes works. By overwhelming the system with a barrage of claims and counterclaims, they create a sense of confusion and doubt. It's a tactic we've seen before, and unfortunately, it sometimes works. The sheer volume of noise can drown out the truth, making it difficult for people to know what to believe. It's a strategy that's been used throughout history, and it's one that can be incredibly effective. This whole thing is about more than just USAID. It's about the very principles that our democracy is built on. It's about the rule of law, the separation of powers, and the checks and balances that are supposed to prevent any one branch of government from becoming too powerful. It's a battle for the soul of our democracy. Dramatic, I know, but stick with me. It's about whether the president is above the law, whether he can just ignore Congress and the Constitution whenever he feels like it. It's about the very nature of our government and the principles that it stands for. It's about whether the president is above the law, whether he can just ignore Congress and the Constitution whenever he feels like it. It's about the very nature of our government and the principles that it stands for. It's a fight that's been brewing for a long time, and it's one that's not going to be resolved easily. So buckle up, Buttercup, because this is going to be a bumpy ride. The stakes are high and the outcome is far from certain. But one thing is for sure, this is a fight that's going to shape the future of our country for years to come. So stay tuned because this is just the beginning. So, what does the future hold for USAID? If I had a crystal ball, I'd tell you. But right now it's anyone's guess. This whole saga could go a million different ways, and none of them are particularly comforting. The best case scenario, the courts uphold Judge Chuang's ruling, the Trump administration backs down, yeah right, and USAID gets to keep doing its thing. The worst case scenario, well, let's just say it involves a lot less foreign aid and a lot more chaos. One thing's for sure, this whole mess has highlighted the vital importance of USAID's work. They're on the front lines, fighting poverty, promoting democracy, and generally trying to make the world a better place. And they're doing it all while navigating the treacherous waters of American politics.